Hello, everybody. We are at the Vehicle Residence Important and Necessary Seasonal Labor presentation. As we are getting started with introductions, I did post some priming questions to get your mind going. What jobs can you think of that employ vehicle residents? And what difficulties do you think working vehicle residents have? Feel free to post an answer in chat, and our moderator will pass along the good ones. I'm Jake Hoster. I'm a vehicle resident of 5+ years. My subcategory of vehicle resident is full-time RVer. I previously worked 20+ years in IT as a network technician, a PC technician, and mainly a programmer and developer for government pension systems. I did a year-long vacation of traveling the country as a bit of a sabbatical, and decided I wanted to keep living in a motorhome. So I had to find work to support me while I did this because I am at least 15 years from retirement age. So I have been working some of the seasonal labor jobs that we'll be talking about. I also do remote work as a web developer. And throughout this experience, I have shared some of the struggles that all vehicle residents have. About today's topic, this is the gist of what we're talking about here. Vehicle residents have a very strong history of providing seasonal or non-seasonal labor that is necessary in supplying food and energy, healthcare, shipping logistics, recreation services, and much, much more in the United States and probably across the whole world. This value is often overlooked in news reports and political discussions that only look at vehicle residents as part of the homeless problem. Protecting the rights and livelihood of all vehicle residents is necessary in sustaining our economy and providing critical labor needs. So, who are we talking about here? There are several different types of ways people can work as vehicle residents. One of them is seasonal. The seasonal jobs are some of the typical work camping positions that a lot of us have seen videos about, cheaprvliving.com, or Cheap RV Living, Bob Wells, any of the popular um, internet sites and YouTube channels. Those include camp hosting, working the sugar beet harvest, holiday or seasonal warehouse work. There are oil field gate guards and volunteer positions of various types. Let's dig into those a little bit. We're going to pause and talk about work camping. That's these seasonal jobs. I just listed the ones listed at the top. Um, there are examples again of work camping. For those not familiar with the term, work camping is a combination of the word work and camping, run together as one word. These are jobs that vehicle residents can do that typically last 1 or 2 months or up to 6 months for a season, depending on the job. In work camping jobs, the employer usually provides a full hookup site for an RV. Doesn't mean you have to be in an RV, but you could be in a vehicle or a van, but that's what's provided. Besides that provided full hookup site, um, sorry, notes came up and distracted me. Uh, uh, Typically an hourly wage is provided, and that hourly wage can range from minimum wage up to $20 an hour or higher. Um, some positions, by the way, are volunteer positions where you get the full hookup site, but you do not get a minimum wage. Those are usually optimal for retirees or people with a monthly income who want to enjoy the free rent or give back to the community. Um, and some of these jobs literally can't be done by somebody who's not an RVer or full-time vehicle resident. Regarding those volunteer positions, we never want to forget or underestimate the value of free rent. Vehicle residents taking a volunteer position, those volunteer positions typically are fewer hours through the week compared to a full-time job. You're either only working a few hours a day or maybe more hours a day for just a few days a week. That gives you time to work a paid job, whether it be in town at a local establishment or a remote job. So don't underestimate free rent. Let's dig a little bit deeper into work camping, which, by the way, I am doing literally right now. So if I get distracted, I am currently serving as a camp host. I have signs all outside my RV saying, keep away, stay back, please leave me alone for an hour. But there is some weird traffic going by and it's distracting. Let's talk about some of these other positions. The sugar beet harvest, the reason that's important for vehicle residents and for our economy and for employers, sugar beet harvest, by the way, that's you go to North Dakota, Minnesota, or Michigan, and you're working at a sugar factory, not the factory, location where sugar beets that have been removed from the ground are dropped off for processing. A lot of work needs to happen in a very short amount of time, typically a few weeks, up to a month. There are not enough locals in these small towns, these farming towns in, say, Drayton, North Dakota, for example. I know that because I work there, to meet the demand for labor to get all the work done. All these sugar beets have to come out of the ground very quickly and be processed. So, work campers or vehicle residents often fill that need. I spoke with Alyssa Castee from Express Employment Professionals in the Grand Forks, North Dakota office. They are one of the employers that provides work campers to American Crystal Sugar Company. They make the sugar called the table sugar, the bags of crystal sugar that you might buy at the store. Express Employment provides 2,200 total workers to American Crystal during the sugar beet harvest, 1,300 of which are work campers, and that's across 3 states. For that job, the wages, first of all, work campers are provided a full hookup site at a campground. Usually that campground includes full-fledged plumbing and bathrooms and showers. Wages are average, this is my math, not Alyssa's, $19.75 an hour as a starting wage across the 3 states, with opportunities for 1.5 times the rate overtime and double time overtime. And that's based on how many hours you work a day. Typically, you're working 12 hours a day for up to 14 days. All of this work, besides the benefits that the work campers get while doing the job, you are contributing to a $5 billion industry. So this is really, really important work, and it has economic impacts. Amazon Camper Force is another type of factory work, actually, seasonal warehouse work. That program is no more, but it was highly popularized on social media when it was popular and when it was functioning. In that program, work campers joined full-time employees at Amazon warehouses and local seasonal talent. They had many warehouses across the United States that changed each year that have different ones in different locations. Again, a decent rate, full hookup RV site provided to you. Overtime opportunities. The workers liked it. They felt better afterwards. It's great exercise. One of the downsides to that program was securing campgrounds and campsites for the work campers was beginning to be a problem. We have a housing shortage across the United States that is trickling down into an RV park shortage, a campground shortage, or a site shortage at those locations. So that may or may not have been part of the reason for the demise of that program. I did reach out to the person in charge of that program. He was unable to comment due to confidentiality and proprietary business knowledge reasons. JCPenney Warehouse is a similar program run by JCPenney at several warehouses across the United States. Google it to look for their jobs and positions. I don't know the exact numbers, but from what I witnessed, because I was working there are hundreds or thousands of work campers across all these locations. Some of these jobs start July or August and run until Christmas. And so there's a lot of working opportunity for work campers, and it helps J.C. Penney out for a long time. These jobs are order fulfillment, picker packer type positions, um, warehouse work. Not terribly exciting, but good exercise and good money. Wages, I'm going by memory here, were like 15 an hour plus mandatory overtime and a famous 12-day straight where you had to work 12 days, 10 hours a day, straight through with Thanksgiving in the middle. So lots of opportunity for money in a short time there. Great for work campers. Feels a very important job for the warehouse. We're making people's lives better, sending out their Christmas orders to their families. Um, besides the wages, J.C. Penney typically provides, instead of providing you with the actual full hookup site, they give you $100 a week per worker stipend to find your own campsite. That worked out very well in 2019 when I was doing it. My understanding is finding campsites, again, is getting harder for the employees, so there are some challenges in this job. Camp hosting and campground work. This is basically working at a campground in a state park, national forest, Bureau of Land Management, land, and private campgrounds. You could be just having eyes on the ground as a volunteer or paid to shovel fire pits, clean bathrooms, greet campers, collect money, call the cops to report bad behavior, variety of tasks there. Very important work, especially in the recreation industry. An RV or some type of RV-like vehicle is usually required to do the job. It can't be done from a local in a commuter capacity. It's a piecemeal job, and that's the other reason why having an RV or vehicle you could live in is important. Instead of it being 9 to 5, you're working a few hours, making some rounds, stopping, waiting a few hours, then working again, cleaning the bathrooms, checking in campers, and there's nothing to do for a few hours. And then at nighttime, you got to make some rounds, clean the bathrooms again. It makes no sense for a local to commute in probably an hour drive each way, depending on location, to do that job. It's not practical. They need RVers and vehicle residents to live on site to do the job. Example employers besides the BLM or the National Forest Service or the state recreation departments include private concessionaires such as American Land and Leisure and Vista Recreation, to name a few. I interviewed Dave Johnson with American Land and Leisure. He is the human resources manager and recruiting manager, to get his thoughts and get some numbers. And he shared that American Land and Leisure alone employs 400 camp hosts at a time in peak season. That's across the whole country. He reported that American Land and Leisure is the second largest concessionaire in this industry. So there's at least one other employer who employs even more vehicle residents during this time. So important numbers to know. Another example of vehicle residents providing valuable goods and services to the economy and to end users is oil field gate guarding. Positions like this are usually in Texas or in that area where there are oil fields. These are usually temporary gigs that last a few weeks to a few months. Gate guards are trained security personnel to some extent. I hear you do not get to carry a gun. Basically, you live on site at the gate and you log trucks in and out as they are coming and going into the oil field. Very important job, and it's a 24-hour job. So it tends to be ideal for couples who live in an RV so that one can keep working while the other is sleeping. Without which, we would have some problems getting oil and oil products processed in our country. Very important to the transportation industry. There are some downsides to work camping jobs for the vehicle residents who are doing them. When there is downtime between these gigs, you're living off savings. You're trying to figure out where to live, where to camp based on where you are. You're probably trying to save money because you're not earning any at that point. Excuse me. vehicle residents are spending money on gas and other travel expenses while traveling between these different gigs. They're often on opposite sides of the country. That is part of the fun of being a vehicle resident, but there is a cost to it. The shortage of housing, RV parks, campgrounds, etc., is causing contention for places to stay. So workers between jobs sometimes run into the same issues as everybody else and have to look into stealth camping, street camping, camping on public lands, and it's not always available. Getting back to examples of working vehicle residents, we were talking about some seasonal positions. There are also full-time working positions. So this presentation is not just about seasonal labor. I should have crossed that word off in the title. Examples of full-time vehicle residents are traveling nurses and other medical professionals that travel. There are traveling insurance adjusters for catastrophes. Quick description of that, for example, my aunt and uncle were full-time RVers, and they were traveling insurance adjusters. What happens is, say a tornado hits in Oklahoma, and many houses and vehicles in a few towns are destroyed or injured, damaged. There are not enough insurance adjusters for State Farm and Geico and these other ones local to that area to process claims fast enough to get that many people back on track to rebuilding their lives. So Pilot Catastrophe is one program that has a pool of traveling insurance adjusters, many of which are full-time RVers or vehicle residents, that they can send out to the disaster area and process claims more quickly. My uncle told me of one client. They were doing the car adjusting. So it could be for houses and property or for automobile insurance claims. My uncle was doing automobile insurance claims, and some people were so desperate to start getting their lives back on track that they were crying and thanking him for coming out and processing their claim. So changing people's lives, very important work, very important to getting a community back on track quickly. Wildland firefighters is another example of full-time vehicle residents, sometimes called hot shots. These are folks who are on standby in a fire-prone area during a season or working an active fire. Very important. I don't think I need to describe that any deeper. A lot of times there is not housing for them in the areas they're working. They have to live in vehicles, and we have to support them. Not to be forgotten about, long-haul truckers are often considered vehicle residents, at least while they're on the road. So lots of valuable labor here being performed by vehicle residents. I want to go back to the wildland firefighters real quick. I did a little quick research on it. I'm not super familiar with the topic. Landed on some interesting conversations in Reddit of all places. Love the internet. Comments that wildland firefighters were sharing in their conversations with each other. A lot of them are vehicle residents because housing is not available or affordable in the area. That's actually a quote. I meant to have quotes around that. Another quote from an actual firefighter. My old crew soup, meaning supervisor, lived on a picnic table under a tarp for a season in the Pacific Northwest. No housing available, affordable or otherwise. This is reality, folks. 1/3 of my hotshot crew did live in a vehicle. They loved it. When I applied to the Arizona R3 crews, they told me first years live homeless behind the station since there's no housing. Again, this is reality. Vehicle residents have been doing really important work here, and a lot of us haven't even known it. There are some edge cases as well. We talked yesterday in the plenary. We were educated about a social worker in a city, a woman who was living in her car after life happened and housing became unavailable to her. Living in her car allowed her to survive and get back to work, continue working, and eventually, I believe, make steps towards getting back on her feet. Um, I don't have the article source, but there was an article last year of a school teacher in a city. I forget if it was like Seattle, San Diego. Um, City school teacher living in a car in a parking lot. I think Walmart was shown, with his family, a wife and one or two kids, living in a car because a school teacher can't afford to live in the community that he or she is teaching in. That's crazy. But the school teacher is now a vehicle resident in that case. Um, and so many others with traditional jobs who just can't afford the rent in the community they serve. So they're not always traveling as a vehicle resident. Also, some vehicle residents are remote workers, such as IT workers, which I do part-time, many medical claims processing and insurance processing jobs, and order fulfillment, and just anything you can do on a computer. That brings up a little bit of a question. Some folks would say, hey, these folks don't count as vehicle residents. They don't need to be working a remote job in a vehicle. They could just buy or rent a sticks and bricks homes. Well, could they? Hang on to that thought for a second. What kind of vehicle residents are these? Yesterday, we talked about the idea of mini camps under a big tent, and that idea has been brought back up again throughout yesterday and today in today's plenary. Our big tent includes many different spectrums of vehicle residents, and it's worth reviewing because it applies here. Economic abilities from rich to poor. We have geographically tethered and untethered, old and young people, healthy, unhealthy, people who need the money, that's why they're doing these jobs, to those maybe in retirement, just wanting to keep busy or supplement their retirement income or to give back to the community. People living in all types of vehicles, whether it be a car, van, trailer, tent, or a $500,000 Class A motorhome. Full-time and part-time vehicle residents. And by part-time vehicle residents, I mean those who are maybe traveling long enough to work for 6 months and then return to a traditional house. And people who are range from traveling solo to couples to raising a family with children and 7 dogs and 3 cats in one vehicle. Hope it's an RV if it's that many people. All of these people across all of these spectrums are doing these jobs. I personally have been camp hosting for 5 years, doing it now, working the sugar beet harvest and working a warehouse in JCPenney in Reno, Nevada. And I have seen with my own eyes all of these spectrums of people doing all of these jobs. Why doesn't traditional housing work as an option for people doing these jobs? Well, as we've discussed in other sessions, living in a vehicle or RV is cheaper and for a lot of people can be fun or more meaningful. We won't go over all the intricacies around those again. Some jobs require an RV or similar, such as the examples of camp hosting, where you have to live on site, and oil field gate guarding, where again, you have to live on site. And then finally, in some of these examples, temporary lodging, such as renting an apartment, getting a motel room, or getting an Airbnb, can be expensive or even unavailable to a housing shortage. And by the way, if you try to rent a motel or Airbnb in a lot of locations for the several weeks to several months that you'd need to be in that town, it's much lesser likely to be available because for any given room or apartment during that huge time frame, this day might be booked, this weekend might be booked. And so getting a huge reservation from beginning to end is not possible. So that's what we've come down to since we are in a national housing crisis and a national affordable housing crisis. So, one person or family living in an RV or vehicle is actually freeing up an apartment or house or motel rooms or Airbnb on the market for somebody who can use that traditional housing. So being in a vehicle is good on many levels. Now, what issue do these vehicle residents face? Spoiler alert, it's the same ones that all vehicle residents face. Um, Shortage of campsites or places to stay in general while working in these jobs. Examples are the work camping jobs where employers provide the full hookup site. But there are exceptions to that. Remember, I mentioned Amazon trying to find campsites for its workers and sometimes running into some difficulties. So affordability and availability issues are impacting this sector of work as well, and this sector of real estate. Street camping and stealth camping issues. Again, work campers and vehicle residents who are working have to stay somewhere overnight. Sometimes there's no place to stay, or sometimes they have to make their own. But we're running into a world with no overnight parking signs popping up everywhere at every street corner and in parking lots. City ordinances preventing overnight parking or camping or sleeping in your vehicle. We're afraid of that knock at the door, the risk of being towed away. As Graham reminded us an hour ago, fear of being arrested for sleeping in our vehicle. There's a shortage, particular, of oversized vehicle parking spaces. By that, we mean a parking place big enough to fit an RV for those of us in these bigger vehicles, whether it be a motorhome or a trailer. There's a shortage of those places in rest stops, truck stops. Used to be able to use Walmart parking lots, at least for a night or two, or some other similar big box store parking lots. They kind of don't want us anymore due to a bunch of other reasons. If you want to learn more, review our recordings from our 2022 National Vehicle Residency Summit, where we talked about why we're losing access to public lands and public parking spaces. We can use public lands if we're out west in the right area and can camp for 14 days or less, but the availability of those is shrinking for the same reasons. So huge issues. Where do we camp? Where do we sleep? Where do we live if we need to be a few places for a few weeks or months before the next working gig? And like all vehicle residents or people without traditional homes, we face domicile and residency issues. We have to have a home address legally, a street address to register our cars, our vehicles, our RVs, our driver's licenses, insurance, vehicle insurance, health insurance, and that trickles down to a whole host of ripple out effects, such as many of us are registered in one state but working in another. If you're not on Medicare, if you're on a traditional Obamacare insurance, good chance your health insurance only works in your hometown except for emergencies. That's what HMO plans usually do. So I'm an Ohio resident. I'm currently camp hosting in Tahoe National Forest. If I get bit by a rattlesnake, I'm covered under emergency services. But, if my heart starts going a little broken, I start needing to see doctors. Can't do it out here. I'm just going to die. So these issues are real. Vehicle residents face problems with insurance because insurance companies sometimes don't like insuring vehicles that are used as a full-time dwelling, even if it's an RV. Sometimes you have to get special expensive insurance and you have to hunt a long time for it. Otherwise, they want to know, where do you garage your vehicle? What's your home address? I don't have a street. I have a mailbox in Columbus, Ohio. My motorhome does not fit in that. So we do have challenges. Where you get your mail, where are you voting, where are you paying your taxes? Another fun fact, work campers who are working in a state other than where they're registered to live can sometimes be paying taxes in two states, both their home state and the state they earn the money in. So lots of people getting our money. And I already asked if there were any other issues that you can think of that vehicle residents face. For time reasons, we'll hold off on that. We'll check the chat when we come back. Sorry. And as Janet reminded us, direct any questions to chat mod. Thank you. So what would happen if the working vehicle residents that I was talking about disappeared? couldn't come to work. Well, we saw a little bit of it in 2020 and 2021 when COVID prevented so many people from traveling, right? Um, Camping areas or any place that requires a camp host, they're pretty much shut down, at least not be kept up very well. But places did close, and there were public lands closed that other vehicle residents tend to either camp at recreationally or camp at to live between gigs. Couldn't go there because they were closed. No camp hosts. If we don't have people working the sugar beet harvest, the sugar beets are not being delivered to the sugar company to be converted to table sugar and the other byproducts that contribute to that $5 billion a year industry. We would not be able to buy crystal sugar on the grocery store shelves, and our coffee would be gross without sugar. Speaking of which, sugar. Online shopping would not get fulfilled. Families would not get their Christmas presents on time or at all. Local shortages of medical staff. We talked about traveling nurses and traveling medical professionals. Remember COVID when certain regions of the country were short on medical staff? Traveling nurses and such were very valuable then. Many of them live in RVs, not all of them. Shortage of them would be, well, we know what happens when we're short on medical staff. We saw that. Local shortage of firefighters in times of wildland fires. I probably don't need to explain that one. And the school teacher living in a parking lot in a car, thank goodness they are still willing to teach and live out of a car when so many others would give up and find better paying work or move to another town. School teachers, I have a huge soft spot for them, very valuable. If they're living in a vehicle, I'm supporting them. Why should we support working vehicle residents? And I'm kind of talking at an advocacy policy-making level here. What they're human. We should be supporting all vehicle residents. That's a big duh. We know that's why we're here at this summit. Working vehicle residents provide necessary goods and services. We just talked about them, and we talked about the things that would be missing from our lives, including personal safety, if they were not. They provide some fun goods and services too. Again, the recreation jobs, such as camp hosting. Vehicle residents contribute to the economy. They're spending money locally in the places they're at. They're paying their taxes, sometimes in two places at once, like I said. They're paying insurance just like everybody else. They're keeping the machine, whether it be the government machine, the economic machine of our country, whatever you want to call it, they're keeping it running. And it kind of works out double for the economy because since they're working, they are likely not consuming tax dollars and benefits, leaving those available for those who really need those benefits. And again, working vehicle residents are not hogging up a house that's sitting empty back home. If they're living in a vehicle full time, that's one more house or apartment, preferably or probably an affordable level one that is available to somebody else who needs traditional housing. I asked Dave Johnson, the HR and recruiting manager at American Land and Leisure, what they, sorry, distracted, what they say about vehicle residents. And he said the work campers are critical to our job. Without them, we wouldn't exist. I've already expanded on that and said, oh, also camp hosts, without them, a lot of public places would not be open for the rest of us to enjoy. Also talked to Alyssa Casti at Express Employment Pros, who staffs the sugar beet harvest. And she said, we love our work campers. They're incredible people. They're here to work, and we love them as much as our locals. By the way, let me back up one notch. Any vehicle residents that are interested in becoming work campers, there are many concessionaires. American Land and Leisure is one of them. There's the website, americanll.com. If you want to look for jobs, last I heard, we have 5 openings. This was as of a week ago across the country. Check out their website and go to the employment page. Hope this helps. for express employment flows. Yeah. Uh, Potential sugar beet harvest workers can go to that website listed there, theunbeatableexperience.com. Unbeatable is spelled with a B-E-E-T. And if employers who are looking to start a work camper program, oh, great, that was posted in chat. Thank you. Employers who would like to start a work camper program similar to the sugar beet harvest are welcome to reach out to Alyssa at Express Pros directly. Her email address is alyssa.caste, that's K-A-S-T-E, at expresspros.com. So hope that helps the world a little bit. Thank you to Dave and Alyssa for sharing that information. Alyssa's address has been posted in chat. Thank you. All right, so what's next? We've covered the value and the contributions of working vehicle residents. The people here at the National Vehicle Residency Summit, those of us who are supporting the National Vehicle Residency Collective, humans talking to each other, lobbyists, activists, we need to continue advocating for all vehicle residents. While doing so, we need to mention the contributions of working vehicle residents. I'm going to pause here and remind everybody, when I talk about working vehicle residents, I do not want to take the spotlight away from vehicle residents who aren't working in the ways that I talked about, or who aren't working at all, or who can't work. I'm merely pointing out a group of vehicle residents who are often overlooked in today's policymaking decisions and discussions about vehicle residents. You know, the media is not showing the entire big tent. Again, they show homeless encampments and streets lined with cars, with clutter, and the problem of society. There is so much more to that big tent, and we need to remind each other and the rest of the world that there is more than what we see on the news. We need to encourage employers to join us in supporting vehicle residents. Thank you. Employers need to support vehicle residents, and that wins for them as well as vehicle residents. It's going to take some work. I had some employers who did not respond to my queries, even when I worked for them for this presentation. Were they busy? Perhaps. Were they afraid of stepping into the political waters of discussing vehicle residents at a national level? Perhaps. So it's going to take some work there, but we need to start doing it. We need to remind our government representatives at all levels the value that vehicle residents bring, and sometimes reminding them of working vehicle residents. To do that, we need to continue gathering data about vehicle residents. Graham and others have talked about that. I think there's a session on that. We need to gather data about the vehicle residents and their employers. We need counts. We need statistics, meaning dollars, dollar contributions. I talked about that $5 contribution, $5 billion contribution to the industry that the sugar beet harvest contributes to. We need stories from all sides. Those dollar figures are important because money talks when talking to politicians and decision makers. That will be helpful. As we move forward, we need to convince the world that criminalizing vehicle residents is criminalizing hardworking people who contribute to our livelihood, and it's criminalizing folks who provide important, necessary goods and services. We need to show the positive side. Supporting and advocating for vehicle residents is a win for all vehicle residents. It is a win for employers. It is a win for the economy. It is a win for consumers, end users, all of us. And that's the goal. I have finished with the formal part of our presentation. I'm going to unshare my screen in hopes that my chat window will pop up, because I think we have 3.5 minutes left to answer questions. Janet, if I'm missing anything, please speak up, because I can't see the chat window yet.
No, there are no questions yet. Please direct message me and we will answer your questions. You've done a great job, Jake, by the way. That's been amazing. I've learned so much being
Oh,
here.
thanks, Janet. Um, I'm looking through the chat window to see if anything came my way. Let's see, links provided. So links are provided in the chat to anybody who watching who wanted to learn more about contacting American Land and Leisure or the sugar beet harvest, or employers who want to reach out to Express Pros. Um, any other questions? I missed the link from Bill before the sugar beet. Oh, that's for let's see if I can add that. American AmericanLL.com. That is the link for camp hosting with one employer. That's American Land and Leisure. They are one employer of camp hosts, uh, and they might have some positions open left this year. That has been shared. We have a minute and a half. Any other questions from any of our attendees?
So, Jake, for remote
Yes,
IT jobs for vehicle residents, how easy is it to get reliable internet access while on the road? This is from Haley.
that is a challenge for all vehicle residents. There are options, and they range from you got to pay for them all for the most part, unless you're willing to go to a library um, or mooch McDonald's Wi-Fi. That sometimes works for some people, sometimes not. I use a cell phone hotspot. I do have limited data, so I have to be very thoughtful. That means I can't be streaming movies on my TV. I have to save my hotspot data for work on the computer. Some people choose to pay for a better service like Starlink Internet, which is satellite based and works everywhere that the trees aren't too thick, i.e., not where I'm at in the forest. Um, and in some remote places, cell phone hotspots do not work. It's a huge topic. Lots of forums discuss it. I've seen it even mentioned on the Homes on Wheels Alliance Facebook group. People talk about it a lot. Great place to learn more information. Any other questions? I think we're down to 30 seconds. All right. Why don't we call it done? Thank you all very much for attending and for learning about one more aspect of vehicle residence. Hopefully, this will add to the big tent approach and give us some uh, fighting power for future advocacy and lobbying efforts.